Just like mum jeans and corduroy, the Renault 5 is back. But is it just a fad cashing in on nostalgia, or is it good enough to rival the Fiat 500, or more importantly, the Mini Cooper? The first and most important thing about a retro hatchback is obviously its retro looks. But if you remember what the original car looked like, you can consider yourself quite old, because that came out in 1972. But if you're like me, and you don't remember that, or corduroy, let me show you some of the design features. Now, before I talk about design, let's talk about price. And even that is a homage to the original, because it costs around £25,000, which in today's money, that's quite an attractive proposition. And even the Renault 5's most expensive trim ends where the Minis start. So that's a huge saving. Now, one of the first things you might notice is this new badge here, this big badge. Now, Renault have been using this for a few years, but it is new. It looks very smart. I quite like it. They've come around here, you've got two headlights here, obviously. These ones look a bit like an emoji. They got the French flag there, which is very nice, and a little cockerel for some reason. Then below, we've got these lights here, which are reminiscent of the fog lights on the GT Turbo, the final iteration of the first car. And they look a bit like a camera viewfinder, but I quite like that. But then if you come to the top here, you've got what used to be a grille, but this is now a battery indicator. So it lights up as you charge your car, which is very handy, and it looks like a power bulge, which I've always quite liked. Now, another design element of the GT Turbo are actually these box arches here that run along the front of the car, along the side, and then out through the back. And that gives it a really aggressive stance, so a bit like a terrier, quite angry. And if you like these, this is a good news for the Alpine A290 that's coming up soon. And if you want to see a drive of that, make sure to subscribe. Anyway, down to the wheels. These wheels down here, every car gets 18-inch wheels, and these are my favorite trims. There are 3 in total. This is my favorite one. And you do get some nice chunky tires. More on that later. You come to the top, you've got this lovely red line that runs around the top, but that's not just for looks. That actually harks back to the original Renault 5 that had chrome rain gutters that went around the top. But obviously, cars don't have that anymore. So instead, you've got this lovely satin red line, runs around the top, and it actually separates the body from the roof really nicely. Renault's gone really big with this car. As you can see by the massive 5 at the back, there's a few other design elements like that, which is quite cool. Got a standard Renault badge here. Up here, you've got this slightly lipped spoiler, which looks quite aggressive, not too much, it's kind of in the middle, but I think it looks quite nice. You've got a proper rear wiper, which is always good to see on a hatchback. And my favourite bit are these rear lights here. There's a bit 3D, you sort of touch them, sort of nice and bumpy, a bit grippy. And there's a fake vent here. It is fake, but it is a homage to the original GT Turbo, so I don't mind that. I think that's fine. And then this yellow paint really pops in the sun. In fact, it's called Pop Yellow. And I think Ali G would like this because it's wicked, isn't it? Now, I really love this interior, and I think Mini should be worried because it feels really premium in here. You've got this 2-tier dashboard here with leather and stitching. You've got this chunky unit here. It would have been binnacles back in the old car. These are 2 large screens, no analog dials, but it looks really cool. While the seats are made from 100% recycled plastic bottles, they don't feel like it. They're really comfortable, they hug you nicely, they don't get too hot in the French sun that I'm experiencing currently, but they're really nice. They feel really good. They got Isofix here. The yellow looks great, by the way. And on the roof, you've got this weird headlining here, sort of bumpy, a bit like the old car that had a diamond stitch going along the top, but yeah, it just adds a bit of character. You've got the wheel in the middle here, which is nice and chunky. It's a bit circular, it's a bit round, bit square. We're not really sure. If you know what the Austin Allegro is, it's a lot like that, but it's got what look like fake touch capacitive buttons, but these are actually real buttons. You can physically press them, they make a noise. I really like that. Now, normally at this price point, manufacturers tend to cut some corners when it comes to infotainment system, but not in this car. The system runs Google software, so it's really smooth, responsive, and reliable. It's a really pleasant experience. It's very customizable. You can choose your colors for the ambient lighting. You can choose your driving modes in there. It's really simple. Its only downside is the rear reversing camera, which I think the Mini has a much better one, but you can still use it, it's still fine. It's got lots of physical buttons down here as well. The whole system's just great. One way Renault has cut costs are these stalks here. They don't really match the design of the car, but this one, that looks a bit like a lipstick, does match the design of the car, but there's 2 flaws with it. One of them, it does stick out a little bit, it sort of looks a bit strange. And secondly, when you put your hand through here to try and do the power, you end up knocking it or the one below and put the wipers on. It's a little bit clunky. Now, the driving position itself is actually really good. You sit quite nicely in the car, you've got good visibility around, it's all around quite nice, lots of maneuverability in the steering wheel to get it just how you want it. My only slight downfall is because of my height. I'm not that tall, but I'm fairly tall. This is the lowest the seat goes. So when I'm sat up straight, my eye line is here, which is a bit annoying. We need to bend down to see traffic lights, but it could be worse. Now, in terms of practicality, it's pretty decent in here for the size of car. You've got this cubby here. I don't really know what it's for. I guess it could be dipping sauce for your baguette, because of course you do get a baguette holder as an option down there. You've also got a wireless phone charger. It's not quite as secure as the Minis. It's got that strap to hold your phone in, but it's nice and grippy rubber, so your phone doesn't slide around too much. You've also got 2 USB-C ports, a 12 volt, little space for your key here, 2 decent sized cup holders, can fit my fairly large bottle in there. If you've got any bigger bottles or one of those Stanley cups, it's not going to fit in here because that flicks open. It doesn't move back and forth, but it's fine. It is spacious though, it's quite deep. It's quite a narrow opening, but you can get lots of stuff in there. And then on this left-hand drive model, decent sized glove box, fit some manuals and stuff in there, but we'll have to see what it's like on UK cars. Now I think rear space is this car's downfall. So if I try and get in with my driving position in front, my feet do not fit under. So I'm gonna have to move that forward to someone a bit smaller. Right, so I'm gonna try and get out this car. Oh, Renault. Right, let's move the seat forward. Which in this is actually really easy. So all you do, push that flap down there, that slides forward. Now we can go on to the rest of the rear seats. Whew. Now once you're in the back and you fit, the room's okay actually. I get an okay leg room if there's someone smaller driving. Header up here is fine. Maybe on longer journeys it'd be a bit rough, but on shorter journeys it's absolutely fine. This doesn't fold down, but it's all right. On shorter journeys, which this car is for, no problem. What it lacks in rear space, it more than makes up for with boot space. Open the boot here, you get a whopping 326 litres, which is about 100 litres more than the Mini gets. And as you can see, you can easily fit this Pelly case in, sort of those oversized cabin bags in planes. Slide it across, it doesn't go that way. You can fit that in, probably another one there, and maybe a full-size suitcase. You can obviously fold the rear seats down as well, 60-40 split, and for city use, pretty perfect. So now I'm behind the wheel of the new Renault 5, I can safely say it is a fun thing to drive. Just as much as the outside it looks fun, it's great to drive when you're inside it as well. This car has about 150 horsepower, which is all you really need from an electric hatchback like this, a city car. Now I've also driven the Mini Cooper electric, this car's main rival, and I have to say, I think I prefer this one. The Mini Cooper was fun to drive, it did have a bit of feeling, but I don't know, this seems to have a little bit more character that car just didn't have. You've got different drive selectors as well, so when you click the multi-sense here, you've got personalised, which I'm in now, you've got comfort, eco, sport, and then back to personal again. And the personal is quite good, you can sort of change it, you could have the driver assistances change, so if you don't want the lane change assist, for example, you can add that to that and then select it once you get in the car. It's really quite intuitive. And when it comes to handling, the handling's really spot on. At the moment, I'm actually stuck behind a Renault Clio, this car's sibling. But when you go around a mountain road, it wants to go, it does enjoy it. A little bit understeery sometimes, but overall, it is really fun to drive. There's got a corner here, see? Fire it in. Yeah, it wants to go, it likes it. Although this car's 0 to 62 is only about 8 seconds, it feels really peppy, especially with that instant torque that you get from the electric motor. Now the electric motor is front mounted, so it feels a bit like a petrol car with the engine at the front essentially. But then you've got that trick special suspension at the back, which it does really help you in the corners. And the braking when you get to the corner is really responsive. Now, Renault's fitted it with a special one-box system, that's what they're calling it. It helps, it works with the electric motors and the regen, it really helps with the braking, especially when you're on a twisty mountain road like we've just been on, feels really good. And then when you get to a town setting and you're driving at 30 kilometers an hour, it's absolutely fine. It drives like as a car you'd expect to drive.
After a few runs up and down the mountain, we thought we ought to find somewhere to charge. Can't be that hard, right?
So we're currently driving through Nice, trying to find somewhere to charge the car, but honestly, we're not really having much luck. Thankfully in the UK, we wouldn't really have this problem because you've got apps such as Cinch, for example, that just take you to your nearest charger. But while we're on the subject of charging, let's talk about the battery in this car. So this specific car gets the biggest 52 kilowatt hour battery, which is good for about 250 miles of range. Now, Renault will tell you that's class leading. It is only 1 mile above its Mini Cooper rival, but you know, 250 miles is pretty solid, and for around town driving, we haven't really struggled. That's okay for this size of car, it's pretty good. And then when you do need to charge, it can charge up to 100 kilowatts, which again is pretty average. The main reason I'd buy the Renault 5 over the Mini Cooper is simply because of its town driving. It's got really soft suspension, but not too soft, it just rides the bumps nicely. The Mini has quite sporty suspension, which makes it firm, but this is nice and cushiony, and its stability is really strong thanks to its extra multi-link rear suspension at the back, which just sort of balances everything out really nicely. Another reason it's so good for town driving is its size and weight. So this weighs 1,450 kilos, which is considerably less than the Mini Electric's 1,600 kilo weight. And obviously, because of its dimensions, the wheels are stretched out right out to the corners of the car. So parking and driving around town and just maneuvering in tight spaces is a doddle. So I brought the Renault 5 out onto the motorway to see what it's like outside of its comfort zone. Because obviously, at heart, this is a city car. but you might want to take it on longer journeys, especially with that 250-mile range. And as you can see, it's perfectly fine. It's very competent on the road, it feels smooth. The only slight downside is a bit of wind noise you get when you're at motorway speeds, which isn't the end of the world, but you do notice it if you've not got any music on. And efficiency-wise, we're averaging 16.1 kilowatts per 100 kilometers, which we don't think's too bad. And speaking of music, the sound quality in this car is great. It's got really bassy. It's clearly aimed at a youthful, young audience, which we quite like, especially when you've got your Beyonce on the way home from work. So you might come away from this video thinking the Renault 5 is the obvious choice when compared to the Mini Cooper. It's fun, quirky, great to drive, and its price is bang on, starting at £23,000. But don't forget, the Mini is good in its own right. That's why it's so popular. So if you want to find out more, watch our full video here.